Welcome to Flip Nerd Live, discussions with and training from America's very best real estate investing professionals. We meet live twice a month to discuss what's working now and get your questions answered. We broadcast live inside of a private online community, which you can join for free by visiting flipnerd.com/live. Let's start today's show.
What's up, everybody? Hey, welcome to the show. Really excited to have my friend Bo Hollis join us today. We're going to be talking about what's going on in the marketplace right now. And honestly, we think this is one of the best times to get involved. If you're new, or certainly if you've been around for a while, like this is a great time. And I think a lot of folks that haven't really been through a market cycle before, haven't been around a long time, are a little bit afraid about the pullback. But the reality is, this is a great time to get into the business. And I won't steal any thunder. We're going to talk about that a bit. But Bo, what's up, my friend?
What's up, Mike? Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, glad to see you. And it was obviously, you and I have known each other for a number of years, but it was great to get to know you a little bit better recently. You spoke at our $1 Million Meeting event. And so I learned more about you and your story. And honestly, that's one of the reasons that I've been doing podcasts for since 2013, actually, is
awesome.
That it gives me a chance to get to know people better. Like social media can only take you so far. And for as much as, people will be getting to know you today that don't know you right now, I'm sure there's plenty that are watching that do know you. It's a chance for me to get to know you a little bit better as well, and us to get to know each other. So definitely a relationship guy. I know you are too. So
absolutely.
But tell us a little bit about your background. Just kind of high level, like what got you into the business?
Yeah. So my background quickly is that I was seemed like a college student forever. My goal was to get my PhD in anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. That was my original goal in life. Wow. It seemed like, and I was on my way to, go to school forever. And well, life happened and we ended up having a baby. And I realized that being a college student forever was not going to pay the bills. And so right after college, I got recruited to sell life insurance. And that was a unique experience because I didn't have any desire to do that at all. I just know I needed to make money. And they're like, hey, you can make $1,000 a week, And I thought at the time I was like, man, that's pretty good money. I was like, I could do this and maybe even make more than that. And so I did life insurance sales, and it was door-to-door life insurance. So we went and knocked on doors and we sold life insurance door to door, where we took our lead cards and we would go knock on doors, and people had no idea that we were coming. And we would go just door knocking. And we did that every day of the week. And I did that for 3 years. And it was one of the hardest sales in the world. You have to sell something to somebody that they necessarily don't want. They have to pay for it their entire life, and they have to die to use it.
That's right.
It is. Wow. It is.
Helps to build thick skin, right?
Oh my gosh. It was absolutely out of control. I mean, people would say the most incredible things, people say cold calling and stuff, door knocking is really tough because they're looking you directly in the face, rejecting you. And that's where I learned how to overcome objections. I learned how to smile through people acting absolutely psycho. And that just made me a better salesperson and a better lover of people for all it is.
What a great training ground for, any sort of sales. If you can do that, I mean, you would know this, like there's a high level of people, high percentage of people that get into any sort of door-to-door sales and they quit after the first day, right? Or certainly very fast. Man.
I cannot tell you how many people I put in my car and trained them, and they had went through all of their life insurance training. They had to get licensed by the state. They went through all their training and months of training to only get in my car, and they didn't last a week. Yeah. We'd put them in there and they would maybe last a week. They'd just quit. I trained people almost every single day of the year, and about 10% of people stuck in that business because it was so hard. And like the people who were really awesome lasted a year.
And now, a word from our sponsors. Investor Fuel is America's #1 mastermind community for professional real estate investors, where hundreds of the top investors from across the country come together to build stronger businesses and stronger lives. Our community is about giving and transformation. If you're ready to take your business to a whole new level, please learn more and schedule a call with us today at investorfuel.com. Investor Machine is the nation's #1 done-for-you lead source for professional real estate investors, serving many of the highest performing and most respected real estate investors in America. We use a unique approach to data that is truly unlike anything else on the market, then execute your direct mail and skip tracing campaigns for you. Markets are filling up quickly. If you'd like to learn more about our world-class service, please visit investormachine.com. Find out why over 7,000 real estate investors and agents have chosen Carrot to build their website to attract and convert more online motivated seller leads. Visit flipnerd.com/carrot to learn more about how Carrot can help you.
Yeah. And that says a lot about you, my friend. You're able to do that for a long time. And really, honestly, I think about this a lot because I have a son that's 15 and we, like my wife and I went to college, we went to grad school and we really believed in education. I could knock it and I think it forces you to learn a lot about yourself, right? But at the end of the day, it's not about whether it's formal or informal education. It's about building up skills that you can parlay into other things. And importantly, I think that they're transferable into other things because there's industries that come and go, right? And there's people that we know that probably have a ton of education in the technology space and then technology changed and they got left behind. But sales skills are something that's like super transferable, and being able to learn that one way or another is going to, obviously it's going to help you for the rest of your life.
It's so important, man. And I really think that, especially that is a door knocking and selling life insurance door to door that way, is it's a fantastic skill. And I wouldn't trade it for the world because I would never be sitting in this chair without doing that, just going through that. So, we did that for a couple of years and, it was an interesting piece. And then one day, I was mowing grass at my dad's church. My dad is a pastor actually. And I was mowing grass, 15 acres, and I mowed it every single week, even when I worked. And I was mowing grass, and I was at a point, my youngest son had open heart surgery. And I was mowing this grass, and I was listening to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the audiobook, while I was mowing this grass. And I got to the end of the book, and I only had known one person in real estate, and I would say like a creative style, wholesale style real estate, not traditional. I only knew one person, and I ended up calling this person being like, I need to quit my job. I just listened to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I don't know what to do. And so all his advice was get online and listen to these podcasts because there's some good podcasts out there. I did. And I just decided right then, I quit my job in my head. And I said, I'm just going to do this. If these people can do it, not in an ego way, right? Just a way of like, hey, this seems like a normal way. I can do it too. And it turned out that was a true thought.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Once you set your mind to something, it just happens, right? I mean, I've talked about it, I guess, a little bit. I've made a couple posts on social media and stuff lately, but I've recently lost like 45 pounds, right? And
awesome.
And it's not like I didn't know what to do 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. It's just I finally made the decision that I'm going to do this, right? And I think it's the same thing. Everybody that I know that's successful in real estate was the same thing. They have different stories than you, but something similar, right? They just were tired of doing whatever else they were doing, or it wasn't working or whatever, and their back was against the wall in one way or another. Some are way worse than others, and they just committed to it, and that's it. And so that's one of the things I know we're going to talk about today is like, this is a great time to either get started or take your business to the next level. I was reading actually what's it called? Oh, a Grant Cardone book recently, and it's If You're Not First, You're Last, like a 10-year-old book. But interestingly enough, it was written during the last downturn, and he talks about how there's like four different responses that companies have during a downturn, and like basically 3 of the 4 were some version of I can't control this. It's the market. What am I going to do? Or lick my wounds or whatever. And then the 4th one is the people that say this is the opportunity to go all in and double down and steal market share because I don't have that mindset of I'm a victim here. Like I'm going to use this opportunity to go forward. And I'm just telling you, and you know this too, some of the best real estate investors are going to leapfrog a whole bunch of other people during this market because that opportunity exists. It's just in your mind whether you can overcome some of the challenges or not, right?
Absolutely. It's just figuring out how do you do it? Just figure out how to overcome the things that we're facing now, because in 10 years, you're going to be like, man, if I would have only bought every property during this time.
Yeah. And I know you know this, we talked a little bit ahead of time, and I know you're at the end of the day, You talked about it with your door knocking. It allows you to overcome people's objections and really focus on helping people. At the end of the day, this business is about helping people with problems. And as you know, the types of problems that we help people with are not writing the changes in the market, right? Death, divorce, inheritance, people tearing up rental properties, losing their jobs, financial problems, all those things. Those happen in good and bad markets, and it has nothing to
Yep.
do with what's going on Wall Street, right?
Yeah, absolutely. People are gonna, this is a sad fact, but people are gonna pass away, whether it's a good market or a bad market, whether the real estate market is hot or it's not hot. Houses are sitting on the market, 2 hours or 90 days. That does
Yeah.
not. It is irrelevant to what is happening in people's lives,
Yeah.
right? Their life issues are going to happen, regardless of anything that's happening in the market.
Yeah.
It does not. It does not matter at
And they need a
all.
solution, right? They need a solution to solve those problems, and so there's folks like us that are able to help them, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just talked to a seller legit today, and I asked the lady, I was like, "So this sounds like a decent property. Why in the world are you going to sell it?" And she goes, "Can I just vent to you for a second?" And I was like, "Of course, absolutely, vent." And we were laughing. She's like, "Oh my God, thank you." And she was like, "I'm at work. Let me shut the door." So she shuts the door, and she was like, I'm only going to sell this house because I have my grown kids are living with me. My cousin Bobby's living with me and his kids. She's like, I have all these people and I'm sick and tired of it. I want my space back. I'm going to downsize and I'm going to kick all these fools out of here. People's issues they do not matter. It does not matter what's happening in the market. And so she's going to sell the house at a discount to us because of her financial her situation that she's dealing with her family. And so who cares what the market's doing? She knows what's up.
Yeah. And arguably those things, and probably not really arguably, those things get worse in a down market. I'm not saying it's a down market, but it's a little more challenging than it has been, right? And so, but people lose their jobs more. Obviously, there's all this inflation going on. Things are getting more expensive. People are, the average American. I've seen this stat before. It's like the average American has less than $1,000 in their savings account or something crazy, right?
Crazy.
But it's like it doesn't take much for some inflation or a medical bill or something to happen where people go from getting by to not getting by real fast, right? And so, not that we wish those things on anybody, but people are generally unprepared for life, and I think ultimately they have to move fast sometimes and sell things.
Yeah, that was me for a long time. I was the person with less than $1,000 in my account. That's how I lived for a long time until real estate investing got in there and started making it happen.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the changes that you're seeing. And by the way, while we're going here, we're live recording this right now. So for folks that are watching right now, tell us where you're from and what you see going on in your market. And if you have any questions along the way here, just chat them in and we'll try to hit them if we can.
Awesome.
And if you're watching this and you've recorded, if you want to watch our shows in the future live, just go to flipnerd.com/group, flipnerd.com/GROUP, and we'll get you on the list. We'll notify you when we go live next time. We've been doing the different Flip Nerd shows for I think 9 years now, 2013. Yeah. And most of them have not been live, but we're recording these live. And so if you want to participate in the live show, we want to know if you want to be notified. So awesome. But let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing from an acquisition standpoint. So I know you're just a killer acquisitions guy, and it's because you care about people and you really want to help people in their problems with their problems. So talk about what you're seeing differently in this market shift so far, about anything you're seeing different from an acquisition standpoint.
So well, let's back up maybe about a year, just so we can give kind of context for this statement.
Yeah.
Probably and as most people know, maybe you don't know, but if you've been in the business at all over the last year, a year ago, it was just hot and sellers knew it was hot, that they knew that they were sitting on a little pile of gold. And it didn't matter if the house had running water or it needed all new flooring or paint and there was holes in the walls. They thought their house was literally the best house in the world. And that was everybody's mindset, was that I know what it's worth and I want 50,000 more than that. Well, market's changed, right? And interest rates have gone up a little bit, and it's taking the time from about a year ago until now for the sellers to actually realize that they're not sitting on gold as much anymore as it was a year ago.
Right.
And so it's taking time for sellers to catch up to the market cycle. And that is what we are currently seeing now, which is the sellers realizing that they might need to sell, or they should have taken that offer that they were offered, 120 days ago. So they're just now catching up with what we're doing. And that's a good thing in our sense, and on the investing side of things, that sellers they're coming down off their high horse and their prices, and they're starting to say, okay, I'm going to sell now. And people are starting to sell at a better discount. And what I will say is that all the investors out there listening to this, whether you're new or you're seasoned, go back and adjust your offers and make lower offers. Don't keep making offers that what it was 4 or 5 months ago. Like, adjust those offers.
You're going to get squeezed. There's a comment here about somebody saying that their wholesale margins are slimmer, and that doesn't have to be the case if you buy them right.
Yeah, start making your offers lower, and because we had to adjust for the higher, prices, right? It's just like a car market, like you trade in your car in a dealership and they offer you more. It's the same concept, is that we started making higher offers. Now we just have to go back and start making lower offers and say that the market has shifted, and just tell people the truth. And I think that when you're sitting down with a seller and walking them through step by step, like, of what's going on in the marketplace, and just say, hey, can I be honest with you? And just be real with them and tell them, hey, I'm in this business to make money. And I tell everybody this: I'm just in this business to make money. We buy houses one of three ways. We buy it and flip it. We buy it and hold it, fix it up as a rental property, and we flip it like it's on a TV show, or we keep it as a rental, or one of our partners does that. And we're in this business to make money, and let them know right off the bat that you're going to need to make money from flipping this property.
Yeah, you're not a retail buyer, right?
Yeah, I just tell them, I just am really honest with people, and they like that. It's like a breath of fresh air. Like, you're not some shark to come in here and just steal all their equity. And you're a real guy or a real girl, wherever you are, and just tell them, hey, I'm here to help you out here, but this is how it's probably going to work. And people are catching up. It's catching up to, we're starting to see much better deals and discounts, because people do not want to sit around and wait for another interest rate hike to go buy their new house.
Right.
They want to buy and sell right away quickly. So they're starting to feel the pinch.
And it's conditioning, right? It takes time, because a lot of folks that sell houses to folks like us sit around and watch the news, or maybe still read a traditional newspaper. And for years they were seeing how hot everything was, and now they see that the market's slowing down, the stock market's slowing down, like all these things are slowing down, and maybe it takes them a couple months to come to terms with, oh, this is going to impact me. And then, of course, there's some people that get to a point to where they're fearful that it's going to continue to fall. And it may or may not, depends on what market you're in, but it's just the mindset of like, I better sell this before it gets any worse. Right. And it's not, you should never go in and put fear into people's minds, but if you can educate them, honestly, probably every market in America right now, you could get some MLS data, or just from your local newspaper, literally just print those things out and take them with you. Like, you see that the real estate market is slowed down. And I mean, you could Google it in any market in America and find proof that you could use to educate people of like, look, things are slowing down. They're sitting on the market longer than they were. Now, truthfully, we've come from a really unrealistic time as well. Like, that's not normal.
100%
We're
true.
really getting back to more of a normal time. But there's facts that you could share with people to educate them a little bit on their situation, right?
Yeah, because we were overpaying for properties, right?
Right.
And so now we're coming much back to a much normal time. And I don't think we can relate this to 2008 necessarily. I think that we are normalizing pricing, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that we're coming back to a realistic price, and we're marrying the properties and dating the interest rates, right?
Yep.
I saw someone say that recently, and I thought that was a really powerful thing.
Yeah, and the good thing is for sellers, like during the last downturn, 2008-ish, when there were a lot of people that just didn't have equity in their house. They had lost a lot of it, right? And they maybe, if they bought it in the past couple of years, they just didn't have a lot of equity. But coming out of this market cycle, there's people, unless they refinanced in the past like 2 or 3 years, there's people that might be a little more desperate to sell for one reason or another, but they have a lot of equity in their house right now. And so they can still walk away with a lot more money than what they paid for the house, for sure.
Absolutely. And especially those especially the people who are aging out of properties and they're just selling rental
Right.
properties off. There's always that group of people who are just selling properties at a discount because it's a messed up property from tenants or whoever else may have lived there.
Yep. And for the folks that are like worried about, like if you're newer to the business, or honestly, I find this even with myself sometimes, like I have a ton of experience, but something will get in my head and I'll start to like tell myself that something's not working well. And I just got to get out, I just got to get it out of my head. Right. And so if you've been around for a long time, even if you've been in this business for 10 years, and you haven't seen a down market, it could be that situation. But this is a great time to double down on the business. I mean, if you follow me on social media at all, I've been talking a lot about that. Like the businesses that are sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what happens right now are going to get absolutely leapfrogged by those that are like, the market is down, but I'm leaning into it. I'm gonna hire people. I'm gonna raise my marketing budget. I'm gonna build up my team. I'm gonna build up our knowledge, whatever it is. Like this is the time to level up or move forward, not to pull back. And I've seen it over a long periods of time. People that just crush it in any business, honestly, lean in to down times because that's when most people are scared. You've heard like Warren Buffett and say, I'm gonna screw this quote up, is like, basically be greedy when others are fearful. And there's so much truth in that. You agree with that?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Right now is the time to be, when everybody else is afraid, go in deep. I literally right before this call, I was talking to another investor in my local market, and he had gone through all his leads that were just like barely warm leads, like lukewarm leads, and just started making 20 phone calls a day to these guys, and pulled out deals out of old leads from 4 or 6 months ago that were like, nah, maybe we'll sell someday, we know what we got, kind of an attitude.
Yeah.
Boom, they're selling left and right.
Yeah.
To leads that were once cold, kind of lukewarm, now they're under contract on a wholesale prices.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's kind of flip over to the dispo side, what you're seeing different. I mean, obviously what gets a lot of media attention is really what's going on in the retail market. I know you sell to a lot of hedge funds and buy and hold guys and stuff like that, and those guys are just as hungry as ever. Of course, depends on how they're financing it because interest rates have changed. But let's kind of dive into dispo. Maybe first talk about your model traditionally, just for context, and then let's talk about kind of what you're seeing that's different.
So what we've done on our disposition side of our business is that when I first started, I was just selling to mom and pop investors, just your average landlord people, some flippers here and there, but mainly our market of Louisville, Kentucky is a landlord heavy city. We do have a lot of flippers here, but we have a lot of landlords because we're a very blue collar city. We have like the world hub for UPS. We have big Ford plans, major General Electric stuff. So blue collar USA. So there's lots of landlords.
A lot of affordable housing, right?
Yes, affordable housing is a thing here. You can get 1% rents off the MLS almost. It's a very landlord friendly city with a lot of up and coming new areas of gentrification and flips. But I really focused on the landlord side of things and was just focused on getting a deal and then selling that deal for a little bit more to landlords because I knew that they paid cash, and I was always told that they're the highest paying cash buyers. And I didn't know what that meant or why it was a thing. But I just followed that advice, was sell to landlords, they're going to pay you the most.
Yeah.
And then I learned about this thing called, the rent to purchase ratio, and figured out why they could pay the bigger price. And so I was just focused on that. And over time, I started focusing on hedge funds who are the biggest landlords, and they are paying the most money. Over the last several years. They're just buying up as many properties as they could get, spending millions of dollars acquiring these portfolios and houses and building portfolios. And so that's what we've done in the past, is small time landlords to the biggest landlords. And that
maybe just take just a minute and just talk to folks about why landlords are typically willing to pay more than let's say a fix and flip investor.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll break down those two things: a landlord versus a fix and flip investor. A fix and flip investor, they need bigger spreads because they are very market dependent. And say that they're holding a property right now and the Feds raise the interest rate. Well, that changes who their buyer is going to be and how that's going to affect the pricing of their home. So they need a much deeper discount, which then on our side, on the wholesale side of thing, we would have to get that property at a much cheaper price to then relay that cheaper price to the flipper
Yep.
so they can put in the rehab costs and then give their retail buyer and holding costs. They have to calculate all that stuff in.
Right.
Well, your landlord, when they're buying it, they're not looking at the value of today's dollars, really. They're looking at the future of appreciation and rent like how much will rent play into their purchase price.
Right.
And they'll work in some rehab costs as well, but they're mainly viewing it over a 15 to 30 year period, and most of them on a 30-year long vision. So they can almost pay like an average deal today. It's going to be an awesome deal for them in 30 years. And that's the way a lot of landlords view deals. So they'll buy their area that they really, really like. They'll marry the area, and they're willing to sometimes overpay for properties today, knowing that they're going to dominate a certain area because that they're not thinking necessarily about today's money. It's all about future value.
And they certainly don't care about today's market value necessarily, right? Because they care about today's market rents, right? And they're factoring in rent appreciation, but they're not worried about like a wholesale or a flipper. They need to know what today's ARV is. What am I going to be able to sell this thing for within 90 days from now, right? And a landlord has a much longer horizon, and they know. I mean, I'm sure you have some too. I have properties that I bought in 2008, 9, 10 that I kept as rentals that are worth like literally 10x what I paid for them. Now it's just kind of crazy. And it takes time to really understand that. But now in hindsight, it's like, and I ask myself this all the time now. It's like properties seem like have been overpriced recently, but I'm like, what will we be saying in 10 years from now? Will we wish we could go back and scoop them all up? Probably, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I have friends who are like some really big landlords in town, and they love buying properties, and they will almost pay full price just because they know the future value of their investments over in 30 years. And so that's the reason why landlords are really, really important when in your wholesaling, because number one, a lot of times they can pay cash, and big landlords can typically pay cash, and they don't really care about the interest rates because they'll just refi later. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter.
So on the dispo side, two more topics to talk about. One is what you're seeing with hedge funds, because I know you've sold a lot to hedge funds, and people are getting mixed signals all over saying that they're pulling back or they're out, and they're obviously not all out. It's kind of market specific and certainly hedge fund specific. And then two is, I know you're very big on the relationship side with selling as well, not just buying, and building long-term relationships with people. So kind of get into maybe what's going on with hedge funds, and then maybe share some tips for how to build solid relationships with people that you're dispoing to.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the past couple of years, we've really built some good relationships with some funds, and I learned about the market and how they work. So one of the things that over the last year, I've seen a lot of, funds coming in, and I'll rate these like, we have, D class funds, C, B, and A. So we have, I would call them four different classes of funds, and there's more different types in there. But a lot of times you'll see people talk on the internet about, oh, the funds are done, they're stopping, which may or may not be true, depending if that person has something to sell you or not, who's saying that. But there are some funds who could be pausing acquisitions because they need to do vacancy absorption. They need to absorb vacancies in their properties, right? They go in and they buy 100 properties in the market, and they're sitting on 100 vacant houses.
Yeah,
they need to pause acquisitions. And so that could be happening. And there could be some small time funds that they couldn't compete with some of the bigger funds. So they may stopped completely. So I think that might be happening in some markets. But what I think is the long-term outlook is that just like we've just been talking, think through like what we're talking about is that we are waiting as small time investors, in comparison, right? In comparison to Wall Street, right? We are small time investors compared to them.
Right.
If we're waiting for downturns and we're waiting for things to slow down and houses to get cheaper, wouldn't we think that the funds are doing the exact same thing, that they are waiting to pounce with their hundreds, millions, and billion-dollar funds, that they're waiting to pounce on America? And the answer is absolutely. They are absolutely waiting in the wings with their money, and they're going to come in and they're going to buy single family single family residential real estate in America. I'm 100% convinced. We have conversations all the time, and new funds are moving into our market, and the smaller funds are doing one thing, like the B and C class funds. They're doing one thing. It's called portfolio acquisitions, and they will build a portfolio to stabilize those assets inside of that portfolio. And they may get 50 or 100 houses, and they will turn around and sell it to the big boys for a spread.
Yeah.
That's what they will do. And so that's happening all across America. And I think it's going to even grow over the next 2 to 3 years. And they have economists working for them. They have people telling them what's going to happen and how to pivot and shift and change their strategies to make sure they're not going to lose money long term. So dispoing to these people and building these relationships right now for when things go a little bit more south in the market, that way you can buy the properties and just wholesale to them, because they're always going to be the biggest paying buyer in every market that they're in. They're going to be big paying buyers, and selling to them and building those relationships with these kind of humongous acquisitions companies. And this happening from East Coast to West Coast, and it's going to continue to happen. I think that Q1 of 23 is going to be a huge buy fest for them.
Yeah.
And they all have different. I have a fund coming in literally in 2 weeks. Where they're flying into Louisville, Kentucky. We're going to dinner, and they said they have $50 million ready to buy in my city.
Yeah. It's 'cause sometimes we forget we basically say everybody is the same, right? They all have different objectives. I mean, there could be hedge funds that we're buying in Dallas, and these hedge funds they're just investors, right? And they have more resources. They usually have some talent to analyze things, like you said, economists or whatever, that are looking. And on some level, they're going after appreciation, which probably is going to slow down here. On some level, there's investors, institutional level, that are only focused on cash flow. That's all they care about, or some mixture of in between. And so, like, let's be honest, some of these guys are just shifting markets. They're like, hey, Dallas is going to slow down from an appreciation standpoint, and we're going to focus just on cash flow. So we're going to go into markets like yours that might have better cash flow, right? And so these guys they're not just in or out of the market. They're shifting around and have other strategies as well.
Yeah, they'll go from like a place like Dallas or even like a Utah, where it's the cheapest house is $400,000, and then they'll pivot and shift to like a Memphis or a Louisville or Indianapolis, where their purchase to rent ratios are incredibly better, and they're just going to go stack in these places.
Yeah.
So
for those of you who are watching right now, maybe chat in if you're listening right now and live. Chat in, what you're seeing on the dispo side. We've got some folks that commented on what they're seeing on the acquisition side. Maybe tell us what you're seeing on the dispo side.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I really do. I think over the next little bit, it's going to be very good for this kind of market, like wholesaling. I think it's going to be really good. And there's the quick flip investor.
If you're a wholesaler, let's be honest, and I don't, most people understand this, but not everybody does. It's like a day trader. Like, it doesn't really matter where the market's at. You're only going to hold it for a short period of time. Really, if you're assigning, you're not holding it at all, but you're just trying to manage this margin in the middle of where you buy and sell it, right? And so there's still gonna be people that are selling their house always. There's always gonna be people that are buying, and you're just making a market is all you're doing. So you just have to anticipate not getting squeezed in the middle, and buying it a little bit better than what you have in the past, because the market value has come down. And whoever you're selling it to, like we said, landlords care a little bit less about it, but they still care, like, what they think the market value is today versus 3 or 4 months ago versus where it's going.
Yeah, I think
you're just a trader, right?
Yeah, we're just traders. And if it starts going south, then we just need to buy cheaper, right? We need to make lower offers. You may have to make more of those lower offers to get a deal, but we just have to make those lower offers and then be able to pass on that value to the next buyer, right? The landlord.
Yep, absolutely.
Simple.
So talk a little bit more about, let's continue on the dispo side, about just the importance of the relationship side, and not just with hedge funds, but individual, landlords or rehabbers or whoever's in your market. And maybe give some tips. I mean, I know you've done excellent at this. You care a lot about it. Just tips for how people can build better relationships, because the days are gone where you post something and you're like, I'm going to have this dog and pony show. I'm going to take the highest and best. I think a lot of, honestly, buyers that bought from those folks are just turned off by that whole experience. Like,
totally,
somebody's going to pay more than me. If you don't care about the relationship and it's all about price, then I'm not going to come out and look at the house, right?
Absolutely. I think the days of, I couldn't stand this to begin with because I felt like I was lying, was that come out here and you have an hour to walk through this property, and I'm going to take a highest and best offer. This is my deal. When every buyer knows that you're totally broke, you can't perform on the contract, more times than not, that you're broke and they're just going to wait you out, right? If you can't do and get this house sold, right? They're just going to wait you out because you can't perform anyways. So I think that whole model is done. I never liked it anyways, but building out your relationships with buyers. And I think the quickest way to start doing this is letting yourself be known in your marketplace, is getting out there, networking, and going to networking events in your city, in your market, and letting people know that what you do, and start finding out what they do face to face, real old school networking where you have RIAs. I mean, there's amazing RIAs all over the place. And I'm sure if you're in Dallas, there's a RIA every day of the week. Like there's a meetup or something almost every day that you can go to and start meeting buyers and get on the phone with buyers. Actually get on the phone and start talking to them, find out what they're looking for. And the way I view this is once you start talking to these people and they say, yeah, I'm a buyer, I'm a cash buyer, I'm a landlord, or I'm a flipper, get on the phone and find out what they're looking for. Like it's a grocery list from your wife going to the store. Like you want to know exactly what they want. And don't let them say, oh, just send me a deal. No, like tell me how many bedrooms and bathrooms and what was your last deal like that you bought? Why was that a good deal? What made it a good deal? Where did you get your funding from? Like find out why the buyers are buying. That way you can reverse engineer the process. And once you go look at a house, you know that, oh man, I know Mike loves this kind of deal in this neighborhood. That way you can call up Mike. Hey, Mike, I'm going to look at this deal on this street. And Mike's like, man, I own 4 on that street. Yeah, let me know. I want it. Like that is the relationship that you want to be able to call Mike and say, I got a deal on this street I'm going to look at. And then you have it kind of pre-sold a little bit going into it. And that only happens by knowing your buyers really, really well. And that in turn, they're going to know you and they're going to trust you, and they may pull you out of deals that you maybe shouldn't have got into at the beginning. And, like they may just really love you. And that has happened a lot of times too, when I just didn't have the experience I needed, that I built my relationships with my buyers and they're like, man, let's keep doing deals.
Yeah. Well, any tips on from a dispo side, from a relationship side, how to maintain those relationships? Because it's so easy to build up a big list of people that you have in some sort of CRM. Like any quick tips you could share on maintaining those relationships over time?
Yeah. So one of the things I think is really, really powerful is once you build out your buyers list locally, is starting a meetup. It's starting a meetup. It could be as simple as free meetup.com. It's not a dating site. It is a real place for meetings to happen, and, so I would start a meetup. I would absolutely, I don't care if you're brand new or you're seasoned, start a local meetup where people who are followers of you want to know what you're doing, where it could be at a barbecue restaurant. It could be anywhere, just a free local thing where you guys can network. People can go and get a beer or whatever they're doing, and they can have fun, and you can go pat them on the back. And you could do that once a month where it's face to face and you're just all hanging out, having a great time. And you could invite other people to come maybe and speak at your meetup about a certain topic. And it's just keeping you in front and center of letting know, hey, I'm still in business. I'm still doing stuff. Then you're meeting them and talking to them and then asking them what they're doing. And you're walking around like a big, shaking hands and kissing babies kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's really the most powerful thing that you could do. And that will continue to build your buyers list and your people who want to work with you. They want to work with somebody who's doing things.
Yeah. Yeah. Building relationships has changed my life. And I think, we're talking about doing it now from a dispo standpoint, but the reality is when you're building relationships, you may have an objective of this is what I want to accomplish by building these relationships. But if you're in this business for a long period of time, or any business, honestly, what happens is other opportunities will arise from that relationship that you never could have predicted or expected, right? But it's just like doing right by people, being a good person. And I think taking the time to build relationships with people outside of social media, which honestly is very shallow these days, where we have thousands of friends, but we don't really know any of them. And so taking those efforts to build relationships with people, like real relationships, will create opportunities that you just can't predict at the time you're doing it.
Absolutely. Go to lunch, go to coffee, get a cup of water with somebody every day of the week. Go plan. I mean, for like a year, what I did is I would go to lunch at least 3 days a week or 4 days a week with somebody different. Say, hey, you want to go to lunch? Get on my schedule. Let's go hang out. And we'd go quick coffee, quick lunch. And if you can afford that, go and do that. Invest in those relationships and go find out what houses that they're doing and go see their properties with them and really go above and beyond what no one else is going to do. Like do the real hard stuff that is inconvenient that you have to get out from behind our computers and go out and be around people. It's so powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. But if folks wanted to connect with you, you got a lot of stuff going on. Where do they go to learn more about you or get in touch?
Yeah, YouTube is probably one of the best ways. We are building out some fun stuff on YouTube, and it's just my name, Bo Hollis, on YouTube. And we kind of are crafting and sharing stories that we've come across in the real estate business, and sharing our stories through a fun, humorous, educational way. Which I like humor. That's something that's really fun to me, and just keeping it lighthearted in this business, because sometimes we can come across crazy stuff. And I want to share all those crazy things on YouTube through storytelling that way. And that's a great way. And then also on Instagram at just my name at Instagram. And I share family stuff and barbecue on Instagram. I am a huge barbecue fan.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll add in the recording, we'll add down in the show notes, we'll add some links to your profiles here. And thanks for sharing your insights and your experiences with us today.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I'm so happy to be here, man.
Yeah, glad you are. And for everybody that's watching us today, thanks for listening in. If you're live or you're watching the recording, we really appreciate you. If you want to be notified of the future Flip Nerd live shows that we're doing, just go to flipnerd.com/group and you can opt in, and that way we'll be able to notify you of when we go live. And we really do aspire to interact and answer questions and stuff like that. So you have to do that live actually. So Bo, thanks again for your time today. Really appreciate you.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah. And everybody, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you on the next show.
Thanks for joining me on today's Flip Nerd Live. To get access to our upcoming interviews with experts and get your questions answered and join our free online community, please visit flipnerd.com/live. Thanks again to our sponsors. Investor Fuel is America's #1 mastermind community for professional real estate investors, where hundreds of the top investors from across the country come together to build stronger businesses and stronger lives. Our community is about giving and transformation. If you're ready to take your business to a whole new level, please learn more and schedule a call with us today at investorfuel.com. Investor Machine is the nation's #1 done-for-you lead source for professional real estate investors, serving many of the highest performing and most respected real estate investors in America. We use a unique approach to data that is truly unlike anything else on the market, then execute your direct mail and skip tracing campaigns for you. Markets are filling up quickly. If you'd like to learn more about our world-class service, please visit investormachine.com. Find out why over 7,000 real estate investors and agents have chosen Carrot to build their website to attract and convert more online motivated seller leads. Visit flipnerd.com/carrot to learn more about how Carrot can help you. We look forward to seeing you on the next Flip Nerd Live Real Estate Investor Training. Please make sure to join our free community so you can join us live at flipnerd.com/live.